You know, there's nothing quite like that feeling of walking into a warm, cozy house on a freezing cold day. It's just this universal comfort. But how we actually get that warmth, the machine humming away in the basement or the network of pipes under our streets, that's a really fundamental choice. And it has these massive consequences for our wallets and for the world.
So, that really brings us to the big question for this whole explainer. How should we get our heat? And it turns out there are two really different answers to that question. Two competing philosophies that are literally shaping our homes and our future.
Okay, so let's dive right in. On one side, you have the individual approach. This is what most of us know, right? One furnace or one boiler or one heat pump for every single home. But on the other side, you've got the collective approach. One big, super efficient plant that serves an entire neighborhood, maybe even a whole city. It's really a battle between personal gear versus a shared utility.
Now, to really wrap our heads around this debate, we've got to look past the big ideas and get into the hard data. Because when you're talking about heating, and especially heating water, well, the numbers tell a really fascinating story about efficiency.
First up, let's look at a classic centralized system. You see this all the time in older buildings. There's a big tank that heats up a ton of water, and then that water just sits in this long network of pipes waiting for you to turn on a faucet.
So just think about that for a second. You are paying to heat all of that water, but how much of that heat, that energy, actually makes it to your shower? Well, research shows these systems can lose up to 40% of their energy just sitting in those pipes and tanks. I mean, that's nearly half your money and energy just disappearing into the walls.
But what's the alternative? Well, it's pretty clever. It's a decentralized, on-demand system. You put these small heaters right where you need them, at the sink, in the shower, and they heat the water instantly, but only when you actually need it.
And the energy loss in these systems? Get this, it's a mere 3%. So the crucial point here is this massive, massive efficiency gap. We're talking about a more than 10-fold drop in wasted energy. It's huge.
And this chart just lays it all out, plain and simple. With a decentralized system, 97% of the energy you pay for is actually heating your water. But with that old centralized model, the number plummets all the way down to 60%. That's a staggering difference. So you might be wondering, if that efficiency gap is so enormous, why do we even have these big centralized systems in the first place? Well, to understand that, we've got to look back in time, because this whole tension between a central heat source and individual control, it's a lot older than you might think. According to some research from MIT, way back in colonial times, the massive central fireplace was literally everything. It wasn't just about warmth, it was, and I'm quoting here, the heart of the early house and the focal point of indoor domestic life. It was basically the original community heater just for one family. And then over the next couple hundred years, the tech just kept evolving. We went from that single fire to the early days of central heating with hot air and steam systems in the 1800s. And by the time we get past World War I, modern automated systems start to show up, finally freeing people from the daily chore of just staying warm.
And that brings us right back to today, where this choice between your own personal furnace and what we now call district heating is a super hot topic. You see it everywhere, from online forums to city planning meetings.
And look, you immediately run into some very real, very practical concerns. This Reddit user sums up a huge one: the fear of losing control, right? The idea that your comfort now depends on some faceless utility instead of a contractor you can just call yourself.
And that's a key part of this whole trade-off. Yeah, on one hand, district heating can be way more efficient. It could even use waste heat from places like power plants. But on the other hand, it takes a massive upfront investment, and it creates a single point of failure. If that main plant goes down, everybody's heat goes down.
Here's another common doubt you see online, and it gets right back to that efficiency thing we were just talking about. As this user points out, doesn't a giant district system just create a new way to lose energy, as all that hot water travels across an entire neighborhood? And you know what? That's a totally fair technical question. But it turns out the real world has an answer. Just look at Denmark. It's a country with a similar urban density to a lot of places in the US, and they've totally solved it. A staggering 64% of homes there are heated this way. So this is a proven, effective technology at a massive national scale. So, okay, we know it can work. But where is all this technology headed? Well, the next generation of communal heating is pushing way beyond the traditional furnace or boiler.
So, meet district geothermal. Instead of burning any fuel, this kind of system uses a shared network of pipes to pull from the stable, consistent heat deep inside the earth. We're talking about a reliable, totally zero-emission source of heating for an entire community. Okay, so if we have this proven, zero-emission technology to heat our communities, why isn't it everywhere? What's the holdup?
And the answer, according to a study from Pace University, is actually pretty surprising. The biggest barriers, they're not technical, they're not even financial, they're legal and bureaucratic. Stuff like complex property rights, unclear regulations, and these nightmarish permitting processes are stopping these projects before they can even break ground.
Which really leaves us with this fascinating final question. After centuries of innovation, from an open fire all the way to geothermal fields, maybe the next great leap in how we stay warm isn't really about building a better machine, but about finding better ways to cooperate.